The NBA has evolved so much over the past 80 years. When the league started, there was no 3-point line, no shot clock, and even the MVP award didn't exist. In stark contrast, the 2026 version of the NBA is much more energetic. It's a much more popular league now, athleticism and shooting dominates the league, and it's now been filled with a good old interesting history that we could talk about non-stop. But these rules would not have been if it wasn't for the role of commissioner. The NBA's commissioner is basically the league's president, and naturally that comes with a lot of responsibilities. Commissioners manage and balance various categories like contracts, authority, popularity growth, operations, and business and strategy. Their leadership is make or break. One horrible move and the league's reputation could be tarnished, or vice versa. One amazing move that changes the league forever. Likewise, no commissioner is perfect. Now, let's take a look at the history of the commissioner of the NBA, spanning 80 years, 5 separate commissioners, and those major changes along the way. Stick around and enjoy the lore. It's one sunny day in June 6, 1946. One particular person is appointed to a brand new league that was being worked on for months now. It was called the Basketball Association of America, or better known as the BAA. That also means they become the first person in sports history to lead 2 leagues at the same time. This is Maurice Podoloff, Commissioner number 1. Born 1890 in the Russian Empire, Podoloff was instrumental in merging the BAA and National Basketball League, or the NBL, into the NBA in 1949. He had excellent organizational and administrative skills, being able to give the league a fast head start. He helped cause frequent expansions, landed their first national TV contract with Dumont in 1953, and improved overall chemistry by being fair to all teams and owners, regardless of their power. For 14 years, Podoloff was the NBA's heart. Along with those skills, he also made many rules that we take for granted today. In 1954, after a series of games in the early leagues that were so low scoring it looks like a glitch, including the famous 1918 game with the Pistons vs. Lakers in November of 1950, Podoloff introduced a 24-second shot clock, designed to prevent stalling and infinite foul cycles where teams regularly averaged an insane amount of fouls per game, which made the game look very boring and unpleasant to fans. In 1953, Podoloff was notable for permanently suspending 32 players that were involved in the CCNY point-shaving scandals 2 years prior, and of those 32, it included punt all-star Alex Groza, who was only able to play 2 seasons because of the suspension. Groza had averaged over 20 points and 10 rebounds per game in those 2 seasons. Averaging 2010 is now reserved for some of the greatest NBA rookies today. With how the game works in 2026, it's a harder to accomplish achievement than it was 75 years ago. Podoloff stepped down in 1963 in the middle of the Celtics dynasty, and by the time he stepped down, his efforts were more than enough for the sport to prosper. He was inducted to the Basketball Hall of Fame in 1974, the American Hockey League Hall of Fame in 2011, 22 years after his death, and lived to the old age of 95. Until 2022, the MVP award even honored Podoloff. Succeeding Podoloff was Walter Kennedy, who right off the bat aimed to be much more aggressive. Kennedy became iron-handed, letting everyone know precisely where he stood on issues. It didn't take long for Kennedy to step into action. One of his first moves was fining coach Red Auerbach $500 for misconduct during a preseason game. At the time, it was the largest fine ever given to a player or coach. In 1969, when a referee called off a game-tying basket in a Bulls vs. Hawks game, claiming the buzzer had sounded when in reality there was only 1 second left, the general manager of the Bulls, Pat Williams, sparked up a protest which Kennedy upheld, allowing for ordering of the continuation of said game to the second of the call-off. Throughout Kennedy's reign, he helped further expand the league. When Podoloff left, there were 9 teams. Stabilized, but clearly there was more waiting. When Kennedy left in 1975, suddenly that number increased to 18. The league's income skyrocketed, attendance and viewership exploded, and instead of initially being known as the president, and like with Podoloff, Kennedy's title was changed to commissioner in 1967. Speaking of the word like, Kennedy has his own award honored to his name, the J. Walter Kennedy Citizenship Award, given to the player who showed the most outstanding service and dedication to the community. Kennedy retired a year before when the NBA had a second major merge with the ABA. Our third commissioner is much more well known than the previous 2, and O'Brien had a massive political backstory. He was a political powerhouse who served as Postmaster General under Lyndon B. Johnson and was the White House's director for legislative affairs for JFK. O'Brien was appointed commissioner in 1975, and he oversaw that second merger. He was able to negotiate yet another national TV contract with CBS, and only his first season as commissioner, he was named Sportsman of the Year by the Sporting News. When PR issues arose with the merger, O'Brien had a solution. He pushed for an wait, am I allowed to say this on screen? We're on YouTube? An anti-D agreement with the NBA Players Association so the league's image could be improved. Traveling 3 years later to 1979, the three-point line was finally introduced after being used by the ABA. It was initially seen as a gimmick at first, and players didn't do many attempts for 3PT, but later on as the league evolved, it has become a staple of the game we all know and love. You can't see a game today without watching someone hit from 24 feet away. O'Brien witnessed as two collegiate superstars with excitement from all over the US came to the league, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Their rivalry together truly sparked during the famous 1979 NCAA championship game, and as it continued for the next decade, the NBA went from a regional sport to a worldwide phenomenon. As the league was transforming, O'Brien came up with yet another brilliant addition to their rulebooks, salary cap. Added in 1983, it was the first cap of its kind in all sports and saved several franchises from bankruptcy while creating parity. But O'Brien's time at the top of the mountain was short. He served 9 years, just short of a decade, before giving up the keys to the longest tenure commissioner in history, one who spanned 3 decades and 7 more different eras. One of his first national appearances would come in a super stacked draft class, and his name? David Stern.
This is exactly how David Stern should be greeted with his final first-round pick. Here's the commissioner.
If you're an NBA fan, you most likely may have grown up with David Stern as a commissioner. In the 3 decades he served, he made arguably the most important changes out of all the leaders in history. For the 1985 draft, Stern proposed a lottery system. After years of accusations suggesting that teams were tanking on purpose to get the first overall pick in the coin flip era, the lottery system made things more unpredictable and more exciting. The proposition would allow the 7 teams that missed the playoffs to all have an equal opportunity at getting the first pick. Initially, the lottery system did not use ping pong balls. Stern decided to use envelopes instead. They were large, white, and were all placed inside a rotating drum. Envelopes were picked one by one to determine the top 3 picks. Throughout the 80s, Stern re-engineered the league. Instead of usually marketing whole teams, Stern realized that individual players were more relatable than logos, so the push was made to market Bird and Magic, and eventually one shooting guard from Chicago, Michael Jordan. He further cleared up the NBA's drug-ridden image, as in the early 80s, there were estimates suggesting that 3/4 of the league used which scared off advertisers. The cleanups were by Stern banning all-star Michael Ray Richardson, Chris Washburn, and later in 1995, Ray Tarpley, who failed D tests. And again, I can't say the word. My God, YouTube. In 1989, Stern signed the league's arguably 3rd very major national TV contract with NBC, with coverage starting there ahead of the 1990-91 season. He added 4 new teams in 2 separate years, the Heat and the Hornets in 1988, and the Timberwolves and Magic in 1989. Stern made the league the first in sports history, again, to play regular season games outside North America. A game against the Suns and Jazz was held in Tokyo, the capital of the rising sun. As the NBA's influence truly became worldwide, especially with the help of Jordan's three-peats, in 1996, after the US Women's Olympic basketball team won gold, Stern wanted to capitalize on a historic moment, founding the WNBA. He lobbied media editors and various networks to give the NBA major league treatment, ensuring the Women's League would survive unlike later attempts at a professional women's basketball sport. The NBA once again expanded in 1995, but this time, the first ever team not in the USA got into the league, the Toronto Raptors. And for a 6-year period from 1995 to 2001, they were the Vancouver Grizzlies, but they relocated to Memphis to the disappointment of the Canadians. Stern was involved in many controversies over his 3-decade span. Examples include suspicions that the 1985 draft was rigged and that Stern bent a crease into the next envelope, the infamous veto of the Chris Paul to the Lakers trade in 2011, the introduction of dress code policies in 2005, and many relocations, such as Seattle moving to OKC in 2008. For the 2000s, Stern added the one-and-done rule, requiring players to complete at least a year of college before they were declared eligible for the draft. He helped launch NBA TV and League Pass, leveraged Yao Ming's drafting in 2002 to make China the 2nd biggest market of the league, and even proposed what would eventually be called the in-season tournament in 2008. Stern stepped down in 2014 for the league's current commissioner, passing away in 2020 and leaving behind quite a deep legacy. And that brings us to Adam Silver, the 5th commissioner in NBA history. Silver shifted the NBA's focus more on social justice, tech innovation, and a gambling-forward business model. One of the most notable actions Silver did, which happened only a few months into his reign, was giving then Clippers owner Donald Sterling a lifetime ban due to discriminatory remarks in April of 2014. Another was creating the bubble. As the pandemic rolled out, Silver moved the league into a strictly controlled environment in Orlando's Walt Disney World, allowing the NBA to resume games mid-season. In 2020, Silver introduced the play-in tournament, and it gave teams from the 7th to 10th seeds a chance to fight for the final playoff spots, which pretty much ended the tanking race for the 8th seed. A second tournament was introduced with the NBA Cup, formerly known as the in-season tournament, in 2023. It brought European soccer-style cup competition to the league, featuring vibrant, specialized courts and cash prizes per players. The most recent thing we can talk about that Silver did was the signing of a massive 11-year deal media rights package that began this season. The deal included Disney, Amazon Prime Video, and NBC. While this affected our favorite analysis show Inside the NBA, where it was moved away from TNT to ESPN on ABC, this deal solidified the NBA's impressive earnings. For the first time since 2002, games were being broadcasted nationally on the Peacock channel. Silver has been vocal regarding the NBA. He's someone who's open to a lot of interviews and discussion. Him talking about the league and especially its income makes for some of the most interesting talks you could hear in NBA circles. He's done lots of great things so far in the 11 years he's been here. And that is the end for today's video. Let me hear from you guys. Who do you think was the worst commissioner we delved into? Or the best? Could the worst be Stern? Or vice versa with Silver? I'd love to see what you might put in the comment section below. Anyways, I'm some random Xander. This is it for the video, and remember guys, stay random. Goodbye.